Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Boom. Ba-dum. Boom. Ba-dum.
That's when that comes in.
That's right.
Yeah, there's a whole farm. It's a haunted farmhouse. Oh, my goodness. Happy Halloween.
Almost.
I know.
It's getting so close, isn't it?
Is it going to be Halloween? Let's see. It's going to be Halloween next... No, it'll have already... No, it'll be Halloween next week when we record the show.
So
happy
recording
pre-Halloween.
Well, ignoring all the children knocking at our doors. Get away from the house, kids.
That's crazy. That's actually true, because this will be when we record normally. Because by the time are we still in the same time zone?
Yes.
Okay, so by the time we record, this will be when the high school kids come out.
Right. The ones who egg your house when you don't answer.
Yeah, when you don't answer. They are hoping. These are the ones that hope for the trick.
That's right.
They're pray for trick crowd. Yep. And so there you go. I'm excited about it. I like I like Halloween. I like it the age my kids are right now.
Are you dressing up this year?
Am I dressing up? I dress up every year.
I always wear my costume on the inside.
Do you?
But this year
It's a costume called Hope.
Or is it hysteria? It's hard to see.
I'm going as depression. I wear it on the inside. Sadness. Oh, don't forget seething rage. So what were you going to say? What are you doing? You I'm sure that you
I may actually
you'll be doing the show in costume.
Yes, I just might be. If I wear my costume all day long, I may actually still be wearing it when it comes time to do the show. Won't that be a hoot?
Hoot and a half, Andrew. Hoot and a half.
Hoot and not 3/4, but a half. If I go, I will go as the robot gunslinger, Yul Brynner
from Westworld. Right, look at you.
Yes.
Breaking out a classic.
Put on a bald cap, put in the silver contacts, got my black cowboy outfit. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I'm rocking it.
I was planning on going as Melissa McCarthy from Identity Thief. Gonna be me in a big flower dress with a big gulp.
I thought that was kind of what you wore every day, though.
It's not funny. I don't drink soda. This is The Next Reel, everybody. My name's Pete Wright. That there over there is Andy Nelson. And we spoil movies heavily, sometimes more than one. You can find us at thenextreel.com. You can check out the fantastic writing, the smooth blog stylings of Steve Sarmento at thenextreel.com/blog. And make sure you jump over to the contact page where you can find all of the direct links to everything else awesome that we're doing, including Flickchart for our top 100 list, ranked list, our letterbox page. You can catch up with us just about everywhere you want. And don't forget, most important, the second most important thing, maybe the third most important thing, is follow Instagram. Follow us on Instagram, because Andy does the Guess the Movie thing, which is very important. I'm saying is the third most important thing, but it is in the top. It made the top 3. It's really fun, and he's a wiseacre with these photos, these Guess the Movie photos. But
I gotta pick tricky, otherwise people get in the first time.
I'm going to throw this out. I'm going to throw this out because I think it's important that you and I talk about it in public, and I'm going to say it in public because
you're afraid of what I'll do to you in private.
Yeah. No. I just want one word for you. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Prizes.
Oh, okay.
Here's what I'm thinking. I think when you win, this is what we need to be doing. When you win one of the weekly Guess the Movie challenges, you get entered in for a drawing. And at the end of some period of time, yet to be determined, in 2018, June 7th, we're going to do a drawing. That's not true. We won't wait that long. We're going to do a drawing, and you can win something, and I mean something great.
That's right.
Maybe a pony. So,
am I pretty?
Pony, real prize to be determined later. This is the Guess the Movie Pony Prize. If you guess the movie, you're entered into the next real prize drawing for the Guess the Movie. What do you think about that? Are you okay with that?
I think that's great. And is that retroactive for everyone who has won thus far?
I think it should be. Don't you think so?
Absolutely.
Just because we don't have our act together, it shouldn't be their fault. They shouldn't have to pay for that because of our tardiness.
That's true. That's true. So that means she's a Megiza who properly guessed Amelie this past week. After only 3 images, will be entered into our wonderful, what is it called? The pony contest.
The Guess the Movie Next Reel Pony Prize.
The Guess the Real, Guess the Movie Next Reel Pony Prize.
Maybe it's the Next Reel Guess the Movie Pony Prize.
Yes. What he said.
So we'll write something up. We'll put the rules for engagement, which really mean that you and I can't win.
Right.
And probably Steve and Tom and Chad and Mike, they can't win either.
Right, our film board gang.
Yeah.
Right.
So they can't. None of them can win, nor can their spouses.
Nor can any government employee.
Nor can any government employee. All right, so those are the rules, just a couple of rules, and that's the third most important thing I wanted to talk about. The second most important thing to talk about is make sure you head over to iTunes if you're listening to this on the website and subscribe to the show there and leave us a really nice rating because we deeply appreciate that, and it helps others find the show. When you do that, when they search for things like movies or, Justin Long or Melissa McCarthy, maybe we'll show up in the search results, and that's what I think really everybody wants. So thanks for that. Let's talk trailers.
Is that the number one most important thing? Trailers.
I'm burying the lead, so I'll get to number one, but it comes way later.
Ooh. All right, that was I let something loose.
I want you to go first this week.
So sticking with my romantic comedy theme.
Let me just interject. This is a really horrible one. Go.
Yes, it is. I've got to say, this is really not the season for romantic comedies. As much as I was really hoping that I could succeed in finding a nice little romantic comedy each week to let loose upon the world.
A new movie in today's cinema climate in the month of October. I wonder if I could find a romantic comedy every single week. What hayseed would have come up with that plan?
Only one. Only one. Yes, indeed. That would be me.
FindYourLackOfFaith.com.
So my romantic comedy pick of the week is Here Comes the Devil.
And we're laughing about this, but this is a freakishly...
No, we're laughing because the title really rings a nice romantic comedy bell. Here comes the devil. Here comes the bride. Here comes...
This looks wicked horrible.
This is a really frightening looking film that, let's see, I didn't look as to where this is out of. It's in Spanish. The original title is Ahí va el diablo. It almost sounds a little more frightening in Spanish. And this is a film that really did very well at Fantastic Fest this past year. And it just looks absolutely frightening. It's about this couple who let their kids go play on this hill nearby, this like big rocky hill with giant rocks and caves and just terrifying stuff that you never should let your kids go play near. The kids don't reappear until the next day and after everyone's looking for them, and then the kids are acting very strangely and the parents don't know what's going on, and then the daughter says, "It was the devil was standing on my chest," or something, and it just looks just freaking crazy after that. And really no romance and no comedy at all.
So I should say the trailer that we're posting on the site is the Red Band trailer. So you know what you do with those. Don't see those if there are kids present, because it's
completely inappropriate.
100%. There's nothing appropriate about it, and
you just say lots of fingers. Man,
the things they make those kids do. That's the only thing I think of anymore in these horror movies. When I think of what they make children do.
Oh, I know. I think I started thinking that watching Pet Sematary when they had the little Gage child like slicing open the guy's ankle. It's like, yeah.
It's not an ankle. It's a sausage. It's just
right.
You're
It's just
eating
sausage.
When does it? When can we see it? Is it out yet?
This is coming out in December, limited release, and iTunes at the same time, coming out December 13th. Adrian Garcia Bogliano is directing it, and it looks to be pretty frickin' creepy. So, Merry Christmas to you all. There is your romantic comedy for today.
No kidding. Wow. Okay, so mine.
Yes.
Now I read this has been on the festival circuit for a while, and so the trailer came out a while ago, and I just rediscovered it because I was listening to the fantastic Doug Loves Movies podcast, and he had the cast on the show, and I realized this is this film. The reason I like this film, and I don't there are a couple reasons I like it, but the number one most important reason is that it reminds me so much of my now oft quoted and repeated favorite Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Gambler.
Ah, yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
And so you got
I didn't even put that connection together, but you're right.
Yeah, no, and so this is like a movie of that. This guy with a lot of money who has these guys, he just pays these guys to do really awful things to, themselves, and then to, other people, and then to each other, and it just gets progressively worse and more violent. And I found it interesting. The cast is interesting. It was directed by E.L. Katz, written by David Cercherillo and Trent Haga, and it stars Pat Healy, Ethan Embry, Sarah Paxton, David Ketchner, and Amanda Fuller. And Ethan Embry, which you'll remember, of course, from the hit teen Breakfast Club wannabe Empire Records.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
He was a kid when he did that, and he came back out and he did Can't Hardly Wait, and we saw him tricked into, Vacancy and Eagle Eye, and so he's been around, but he plays a really sort of interesting kind of spooky character in this thing. And so but everybody else, I quite like that. It just looks like a very serious and dark film for a lot of these actors. Sarah Paxton, Pat Healy has always been a little bit grim. But anyway, it looks like an interesting film. Cheap Thrills. It's they had the. I don't know, when does it actually come out. They just did the Friends and Family thing, February. So it comes out in a couple months, but it's already screening. If you live in Austin, you apparently had like 17 chances to see it already. So be on the lookout for Cheap Thrills. It looks pretty.
It looks twisted.
Yeah, pretty twisted.
Yes, it does.
So that's where we stand apparently on Romantic Comedy Month.
That's right. That's what it's brought us to. We tried. We really tried.
On that note, my friend, I think we should.
Yes.
I think we should get into it.
Let's do it.
If you've just tuned in, we're talking to Sleepless in Seattle.
You called a radio station? Christmas Eve. He phones in one of those radio call-in shows. He tells them
that his dad needs a new wife.
And the shrinkette practically forces the guy onto the phone and says,
"Tell me, what was so special about your wife?"
Well, Dr. Marcia Fieldstone, I think. It was like
magic.
Sleepless in Seattle?
That's what she called him on the show because he can't sleep.
And now 2,000 women want his number.
Dear Sleepless in Seattle, you're the most attractive man I ever laid ears on.
The guy could be a crackhead.
Actually, he sounded nice.
You know it's easier to be killed by terrorists than it is to get married over the age of 40.
That's not true. That statistic is not true.
That's right. It's not true. But it feels true.
Sandy has a girlfriend, Glenda. She's a weightlifter. It's not like her neck is bigger than her head.
No. I'm not asking you to set me up.
What about Walter?
Walter and I are engaged.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
The Lou Gehrig line. The Lou Gehrig line.
When's the last time you were out there?
Jimmy Carter, 1978.
Things are a little different now.
I am having all of these fantasies about some man I have never even met who lives in Seattle.
It rains 9 months of the year in Seattle.
I know.
Tiramisu.
What is tiramisu?
You'll see.
Some woman is going to want me to do it to her, and I'm not going to know what it is.
You'll love it.
What if I never meet him? What if this man is my destiny and I never meet him?
Your destiny can be your doom.
I want to meet you.
Dad, read this, read this.
Where is Seattle? Right. Where's Baltimore? Ah, it's right there. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's like 26 states.
But what I really don't want to do is end up always wondering what might have happened and knowing I could have done something. Is this crazy?
That's what I'm trying to tell you. What women are looking for. Pecs and a cute butt.
This is the one I like.
There is no way that we are going on a plane to meet some woman who could be a crazy, sick lunatic. Didn't you see Fatal Attraction?
You can't even turn on the news nowadays without hearing about how some babe thought some guy's butt was cute.
So how's my butt?
Not bad.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it cute?
You grading on a curve?
Andrew, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you.
Uh-oh. Makes me nervous when you say that.
I freaking love this movie.
Okay. Phew.
I do. I didn't. In fact, this is one of those rare movies where this is one of those movies. Maybe it's because I was in a Lifetime movie mood. Right, I had it on my iPad. I put the iPad up on the side on the bedside table, and it was like 11:15 at night, and I was my wife's out of town. I'm totally alone, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I need to watch this. I need to watch this stinking movie for the week. Okay,
all right.
I'll turn it on, and I watched the whole thing, and I could not turn away. I couldn't turn away from it. I actually remember liking it less than I like it now, and
interesting.
Yes, I like it a lot more than I've in the past.
Well, good.
Now I'm sure because of your unnatural attraction to Tom Hanks that you that you still like this movie, right?
I still love this movie. I've always loved this movie. It's funny. My wife and I were watching it together, and
let me guess, she doesn't like it anymore.
No, she still loves it. But I was like, "Gosh, can you believe this movie is 20 years old?" And she just looked at me like she was going to kill me for saying that. And then I'm like, "Gosh, I wonder how old Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan were when they made this." And I looked it up, and I'm like, "Man, Tom Hanks was 37, and Meg Ryan was 32 when they made this film." And my wife looked at me like she was going to rip my head off for having told her that. And then she looked at me and she said, I still picture them as older than me. I can't think of that. I can't think of these people as being younger than me while watching this. And it's funny how you place these moments of these movies in your head, and you see these people at a certain age, and all of a sudden you realize that this story is about people who are younger than you are. You're like, wow, that really puts things in perspective.
It's funny. So I saw this. This movie came out in 1993, June 25th, 1993.
Right.
And I was not dating anyone at the time. I actually went. I was using the Franklin Planner for those years. Yes. Andrew, I think you remember because you and I actually, I think, made trips to the Franklin store before. This was pre-Covey.
That's right. It was just the Franklin store.
And and we got it was the Benjamin Franklin set.
That's right.
Yeah, the blue embossed. It was really quite lovely, and I still have. You remember they had those binders, right? At the end of the year, you're supposed to put your entire past year into those ridiculous binders.
Yes.
And I still have those binders.
Save for life.
Why? Yes. And who would have known that the only reason I would need to go back to those ridiculous binders is for a 20 years later podcast talking about Sleepless in Seattle.
Wow. That's awesome.
I have not revisited those for any other reason in 20 years.
That's amazing.
So this is not that show.
It was all worth it then.
It was all worth it. But what I was not dating anybody at the time, and I went to I remember seeing this film thanks to my Franklin Planner system, with a woman who, and we ended up. I was dubious in my Franklin journal entry, and I had written down this quote that I said, "Who talks like that?" As if to say, who talks like that? No one talks like that in this movie. That's ridiculous. This maudlin and it's ridiculousness. And she said, every one of the people in my head talk like that.
Wow.
Right? Now I feel 20 years have gone by and I feel like I get that. I get it. It took me 20 years to get it. I almost want to write her a letter, a nice letter that tells her I get it now. And here's why. And what I think that, Jeff Arch and Norah Ephron and, what they capitalize on is the voices in our head. And I even think they do so more than the other Meg Ryan that we've already talked about, the When Harry Met Sally. I think this is a superior film to When Harry Met Sally. I said it. It's a superior film to When Harry Met Sally. I think in terms of what the movie is, where the movie's core strength is capturing our romantic vision of, white widowers in love. This is the quintessential film for that set.
Wow, that's a very specific set.
They're gonna do a new series.
The White Widowers in Love series.
You make me sound dumb.
No, it's a beautiful thing.
No, but do you know what I'm saying? Like there is an identity, a cultural identity that comes with this film that I think it celebrates what our ideal love sounds like. And
I think
that's
the key. That's the key thing about this film, and I think this is one of its many strengths, is that this is not just about a story of love. This is a story about love in the movies, and really how love in the movies is something that for decades now has been something that we put upon our own expectations of love. And it's this interesting cycle of love, movie love, our expectations of love because of movie love, and this kind of perpetual, it's not quite a vicious cycle, it's this wonderful cycle of love kind of going around as how it all affects each other and everything, all the expectations and what we want to see and what we want a love story to be like, and which is different than, I guess, what our own love stories would be like. But there's something really magical about the way that love happens in the movies, and the way that this movie uses that as a tool, and not just as a tool to kind of show how these two people fall in love in this particular movie, but also how they emphasize it using clips from An Affair to Remember, and just talking about, actually talking about it in the movie, which you don't ever see, and actually having actors and characters talking about love in the movies in a movie about love, I think was really kind of groundbreaking.
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely. The Victor Garber, Rita Wilson, and Tom Hanks sitting at dinner.
That's just one of the best.
Is one of the best sequences in the film. What we can talk about that in a minute. Let's talk about the arc of romance in this film. Like this was a risky film as a romantic comedy because it starts off on the premise. I mean, one of the things I heard Jeff Arch, who was credited as writing the story, the first drafts of the film, said is that the first thing you do when you start trying to come up with a romantic comedy, like a romance film like this, is you try to find ways for the two characters not to be together, right? What do you put in the way of their relationship?
Right.
And I think what they ended up doing there is doubling down on avoiding the meet cute as in a way that probably today would never be a film that would be made. Right? I mean, we're going to put Tom Hanks in Meg Ryan in a film, and they're never going to meet until the very, very end of the film. And I think that's a risky proposition, less risky with where they were when they were 38 and 32, but still risky.
Yeah.
And so what's your sense of the risks they took in this film in terms of the overall arc of the couple and the romance?
Well, I mean, the nature, it is risky when you have two actors in a film and you don't put them in the same space. You kind of are, one of the big elements of telling a love story is actually having the couple spend time together and enjoying watching them interact. I mean, that's kind of part of the nature of it. This film, I mean, there's only the three scenes really with them together. One is when he sees her at the airport. Two is when she's stalking him and then runs away, right, in the street. And then three at the end, and that's it. And those are the only times we ever see them on screen together. And it's very interesting that the rest of the time it's them and other people. And for a Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan comedy, of which there are three romantic comedies, this is the only one where they hardly have any screen time together. And it must have been interesting making this film for the two of them to have so little time together. I mean, there's the idea of the other, but that's really it. And they don't get to be together. It is very risky. I think smartly, Delia Ephron, who's Norah Ephron's sister, she came on board once they started making the movie to kind of work as her credited title is associate producer, but my understanding is she came on to kind of be a writer during the course of production to kind of fix scenes and kind of do cleanups and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. She said that the problem with romantic comedies, and this may be why romantic comedies has been kind of fading away from at least what we think of romantic comedies, it's been kind of fading away in recent years. What keeps two people apart is really what the romantic comedy is about. It was a lot easier, 50 years ago, 70 years ago, to have a romantic comedy where there were all these much more strict rules about manners, about divorce, about polite society, about the roles that people had. And nowadays, there's just not as many of those rules, and so it's a lot harder to come up with reasons to keep two people apart. And in a lot of modern movies, it's usually nowadays it's like one person's engaged to somebody, and that's the other they meet somebody else, and then they have to figure out who to choose. That's kind of become almost like the cliche way to get out of this struggle of keeping these two people apart. And so it was a real challenge for this film. How do we keep these two people apart? And I'm not sure when they hit upon it. I am guessing it was Jeff Arch when he first came up with the story. Put them on opposite sides of the country so they don't actually know each other. That is a great, great way to keep two characters apart and create this story. But yeah, I can imagine that it is a very tricky script to sell to people, especially when you're trying to get it into Hollywood with some bigger actors. So I could imagine it could still get made today, but the way that the market has really been going with romantic comedies, Steve actually posted a blog post over on our site that has a link to a Hollywood Reporter story about how romantic comedies are kind of dead now. It may be harder to get it made now if they're not actually on screen together. And I can see the Hollywood executives saying, "Oh, it's a great, but let's find more ways to get them together more often over the course of the script."
Well, and look at the movies that you picked. I mean, so what did you do last week? It was the terrible movies, right? Both of those movies were
and Never Ending Love or Endless Love.
Endless Love. Right,
and whatever the other one was.
Yeah. So these are sort of modern romance movies where they bring the couple together very quickly and then do their best to just make it hard for them to be together. Not to keep them apart, to kind of revel in them joining one another, but to see just how hard we can make it once they are together. What are the troubles that exist internal to the relationship, rather than external in the world and, sort of cultural issues. And I think that one of the things I like so much about Sleepless in Seattle is that they, insofar as it's a romantic comedy, it's a romantic comedy that actually puts both of these characters in very much kind of an everyman position. It is the way the film opens is really dark. Tom Hanks, going through the motions of explaining why Maggie has died and how she got sick very quickly and died, and we see just very, very brief sequences of kind of the mourning period, and then we move into them deciding to relocate and move to Seattle and not be around the memories. And I think one of the things I like so much about it is they didn't fixate too much on getting into the movie in this case. I mean, we see it's set up. They show us, they demonstrate the setup, and then they move into the comedy part, and that allows us to be in Seattle with Tom Hanks and, frankly, with Jonah, if everybody else wasn't so strong, Jonah would totally have stolen this movie.
Right. Well, and it's a very smart beginning to the script because it lends us some gravitas to the story, and it really puts us into the right mind frame for this. You could easily have done this as just two people who coincidentally meet on opposite sides of the country. They somehow end up corresponding through some radio show or something, and then it turns into kind of a romantic comedy of errors as they try to find a way to meet together, and they keep bumping into each other or not quite bumping into each other. I could totally see it being written that way. And
we saw that movie. It was up in the air.
Well, no, but I mean more of a yes, that's quite right. Although I think more in the kind of Jennifer Hudson, Matthew McConaughey romantic comedy sort of style, rather than something that's has a little more seriousness to it. You could easily go that route, but by having that moment at the beginning, it really puts us in a place where somebody really is kind of broken, and you need that character transformation in this character to kind of move past that and find that magic again in his life. And I think that's what really makes this movie a little more special than a lot of the more standard romantic comedies, that it just, they don't have a real grounded sense with the characters.
Paul Greengrass was recently on the Apple Meet the Filmmaker podcast, and he was talking about Captain Phillips, and one of his comments about Tom Hanks in general is that I really latched onto is he said what makes Tom such a world-class actor is his ability to be that everyman. It is really easy because he is so nuanced and real. It's really easy to watch him in a scene and believe that could be you, or that could be your best friend or your brother. I mean, that's where that's his stock and trade. And I think this film, is the strength of his mourning and the journey that he is led on by his brother-in-law and his son. Is on the back of him portraying this kind of everyman, and his strength as an actor in this case, and not making it too goofy.
Yeah,
which it could easily be goofy. And as you say, I mean, they could very easily have opened with the radio show. I mean, that could have been the setup. And in fact, Jeff Arch has said, in the original draft, it was not Jonah that called the radio show. It was actually Sam who called the radio show himself in the initial draft, and so that whole conversation, Annie was actually listening to him.
Sam, huh?
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and in the original version, it actually started, Annie and Sam both lived in Chicago. His wife passed away, so he moved to Seattle, and she had just broken up with her boyfriend, and so she moved, initially it was to Pittsburgh, and then they decided to make it even farther, stretch them farther apart, move her all the way out to Baltimore.
I do want to say, just parenthetically, what Jeff says about that in particular. He said nobody that looks like Meg Ryan would have been from Pittsburgh at all, ever.
That's pretty funny.
I've never spent much time there, but
I haven't. I've never spent any time there at all. But it's kind of funny. I'm not even sure what that means.
I know, right? I don't either. I sort of don't want to touch it, but it makes me laugh.
If you're from Pittsburgh and you see people like Meg Ryan all the time, please let us know.
Instagram them, please.
Yes, how wrong Jeff Arch is. But originally, they had this moment at the beginning where Annie moved because she broke up with her boyfriend. And I think very smartly they realized, that just doesn't compare with somebody losing their wife. It's not going to be the same type of feeling that you're getting in that character. And you're not going to be as invested in that character because you're just like, why, so she broke up with her boyfriend. That's nothing compared to a guy who's lost his wife. And smartly they realized that the audience wouldn't care as much about her if they started that way. So they just started her in Baltimore right away with Walter, which is great. And that's something else about this, creating a much more realistic world for our characters that I really like in this film, is you don't have like the cad of a boyfriend that everybody just can't believe that she's with. He's a really nice guy. I mean, sure, he's got his issues. He's got his allergies. He's got his colds. My wife actually started cracking up in the scene in the bedroom because she said, "Yeah, that totally reminds me." Yeah, she's like, "You're him." It's like, oh, thanks. I'm Walter. I want to be Sam. Come on.
I know. I am too. I'm totally the Walter. Oh man! But that is such a great point. He is not. I mean, he's broken and he is sort of frail. But again, to that everyman point, he's us. Right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I think that the movie does so well is it celebrates the fact that even though Meg Ryan is going through, or Annie is going through the sort of crisis of relationship conscience that she's going through, and the struggle of just kind of love and lust and attraction and what it means, still they portray their relationship as functionally perfect. Right, it is a machine that is perfect, and that I think makes it so much harder to watch. It makes the transformation of relationships so much more powerful. Finally, when they're in the restaurant at the end, and every time the gaze wanders over to the Empire State Building, you're with her,
right,
and yet you're not. How could you possibly walk away from what is perfect?
Yeah, right, exactly. And what he says there is great. He's like, look, I love you, but let's put that aside for a minute.
Yeah, brilliant.
I don't want to be anybody's, second choice or whatever he says. I mean, it's just great. And that is so rare to see in a romantic comedy. It's typically that person who's just is so not right. And because they're an evil character. There's something really just they're vain or whatever it is, and it's so nice to see just a really nice guy as the foil, so to speak. And I think that's just another of the great strengths in this script.
And Rosie O'Donnell is,
Rosie O'Donnell, her second movie with Tom Hanks after League of Their Own.
That's right.
Interestingly. Rita Wilson, Tom Hanks' wife, actually had read for that part, but they had already found Rosie, and they just loved her so much in the part, so they ended up giving Rita Wilson the sister-in-law part,
which I think was better.
Oh, and her moment where she's kind of reliving the moment of An Affair to Remember. I mean, that is just one of those classic movie moments.
And
I think that
in the script originally, it was improvised, I believe.
I don't know, but I think that is one of those scenes that stands out more than any scene that Rosie O'Donnell's in.
Yeah.
So she ended up in the right part.
Absolutely. And Victor Garber, I had forgotten Victor Garber was in this and as a sort of supplementary kind of ancillary character in this film. But he and I became really close friends in Alias every week.
Good old Victor Garber.
God, whatever happened to Rambaldi? That cad.
And I forgot David Hyde Pierce was in this.
Yes, briefly,
yes.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see him before he was a walking stick and before he was on Frasier and all that.
Yep. The boy, Ross Malinger.
He is so great at being an 8-year-old. Man, I really have a hard time with kid actors because they really have to be believable. And I shouldn't say I have a hard time with the kid actors because I think kids are really good typically at just kind of being honest kids on screen.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a hard time with the way that some adults write kids. I think that's probably the better way to state it. And I think when you and I talked about Looper, we talked about that kid, and as I recall, that kid was pretty good in that film.
Yeah, I mean, transcendent.
Yeah.
It was like a little robot version of a child. Robot perfection, child perfection.
From the future.
Exactly.
But Ross Malinger is just one of those kids. I mean, he plays off of Tom Hanks so well. I 100% buy that he's Tom Hanks' kid. When they are having an argument, I completely am just blown away by how real he is and how honest everything is in the arguments. The whole fight about toward the end when Tom Hanks is getting ready to go on his date, I think, or something, and they're fighting and they're arguing and
wandering back and forth.
Wandering back and forth, which again is just a great way to direct a scene. You're kind of just there's so much movement going on, but it's, fighting about Fatal Attraction and all that stuff. All of that, and it's aside from their great performances, I mean, the writing is just impeccable. I love just. Did you see Fatal Attraction? You wouldn't let me. It rings so true. And Ross Malinger is so great in it. And so I absolutely love him.
This is another one. The relationship there apparently is written based off of Jeff Arch and his daughter. And he says this was very much inspired by not only the relationship I feel like I have with my daughter, but she's a little younger than Ross was in the film. He says it was definitely inspired by the relationship I want to have and wanted to have at the time with my daughter. This is very much how we talk to each other, he says. So.
And my understanding is Delia Ephron writes a lot of kid stuff, and she came in and ended up doing some playing around with a lot of the kid language. Like she came up with a whole, like all of the MFEO, all of kind of like the abbreviations that the kids use. That's kind of her. She brought a lot of that to the table, just a lot of that sort of kid stuff. So.
Oh, that was so good.
Yeah. And why?
And why? What was her name? What's her name?
Gabby Hoffman.
Gabby Hoffman, of course. My
goodness.
She
talked about her in Field of Dreams.
Exactly. She was young.
She was a kid.
Goodness. She was in the hit film Volcano.
Yes, she was.
Now,
she was Tommy Lee Jones's daughter.
That's a disaster film right there.
She was also just in what was that? Crystal Fairy, the Michael Cera movie we talked about the trailer for recently.
Nice. So they were great. I think, like I said, I think that steals the film. Got totally sidetracked on Gabby Hoffman. Don't remember what I was going to say.
I mean, it is a great cast all around. It's nice seeing Rob Reiner pop in for a few scenes. I mean, he's so fun to see on screen. You get kind of lost in the fact that he's a director now, that it's rare to see him actually pop up in a film, but it's fun to watch him do it. I really enjoy seeing him again.
Oh, and come on, from the Law film with the handsome lawyer, or from the Law TV series with the handsome lawyer, the round guy,
Michael
Badalucco was in it. Briefly.
Very
I love
briefly.
these. It's like they're cameos until you remember this movie was 20 years old and they weren't cameos.
Yeah, this was before he actually was in anything.
Pre-cameo.
This was one of his very early things. Yeah, I think we talked about him last in The Professional.
We did. Really, really terrific all the way around this film. It's hard for me to find anything wrong with it.
Did we say Bill Pullman? I think we said Bill Pullman.
We did say Bill Pullman.
If not, we should have said
We should have said Bill Pullman. He was Walter.
Yes, he was great as well.
He's great and not annoying at all. Even though all of his through his deficiencies.
And I love now that I said I'm not going to find her. Well, Carrie Lowell is the lovely dead wife, and we see her a few times.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just using to cover while I try to find who it was I was going to talk about. Oh, Dana Ivey, I think is just really funny as it's such a bit part, one scene as the rich lady having them design her house, but I just love her character. Like when she's talking to him, it's just like, I just love it when
it's better to do it right.
I love it when a man can share his emotions. And I called my mother and I said, "Mother, you have to turn on the radio. It's my architect."
It's my architect.
She's just so great.
Yeah, all the way around. I mean, everyone fits like it's just a wonderful tableau. So this film was let's see, we've already talked about Jeff Arch and Norah and Dahlia Ephron.
We haven't mentioned our friend David S. Ward.
David S. Ward. That was the next one. So go ahead. Yeah, talk about how important you are.
I wasn't going.
It's totally why you've been waiting.
I wasn't gonna.
You brought it up. You brought it up, and now you're still talking about it.
Well, I do have a DVD of Sleepless in Seattle that he did sign. I had it signed for my wife, actually.
Ahoy, Polloy!
I wasn't going to say anything. Pete made me. Yeah.
How'd you happen to score that? Just out of curiosity.
He came out to the Phoenix Film Festival a few years ago. I was running the Arizona Screenwriters Association at the time, and we brought him out, and we brought him out to screen his latest film that I think was Flyboys, I believe. And so I did a little sit-down chat with him, and we talked about all of his films and everything, and then I had him sign that for my wife.
Epic.
Pretty nice.
Yeah, that was nice of you.
Yeah, I had him sign the Sting for myself.
Oh, that's good. All right. Well, at least you got some out.
There you go.
Music in this film was super duper important, as they say in the business.
Yes, it was. Speaking of, as we've been talking about romantic comedies with music, I mean, man, the songs in this one just are all through it. And I really like what she did with it, finding all of these standards, but not like the standard version of the standard. She finds like fun versions of them or just slightly different versions. And I really like all the stuff that she picked to play all through the film. I particularly have always, and perhaps ridiculously, loved the Jingle Bells / Sleigh Ride performed by Roy Rogers and Dale Evans that Meg Ryan sings to in the car. And I know that it's probably one of the most annoying Christmas songs ever written, but I flippin' love it. And let me tell you, I went on like a 5-year quest to figure out what album that was from. And I did finally find it, and I have it now.
What album is that from, please?
It's called Christmas Is Always by Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. And
that's not a sentence.
It's not true. It's not.
Those are just he's just putting words together there, right? You know that?
That's right. It's really not a great album, but that song is on it, and that's all I really cared about.
Okay. All right. Well, the whole soundtrack is fantastic, and that's you do get some of those standards. Lots of Jimmy Durante and Louis Armstrong, Nat King Cole, but you do get Making Whoopee performed by Ricky Lee Jones with Dr. John, Wee Small Hours of the Morning, Carly Simon, Joe Cocker's Bye Bye Blackbird. It's a fantastic, and the music was the score was done by Mark Shaman.
Mark Shaman, who is he's great doing this sort of a film where there's just lots of music all through it, because he likes to kind of play with it where he's kind of like almost like a music director, and he mixes just little short bits of score in throughout while there's a bunch of other music. John Barry originally was offered the job, and he was going to do it. He was very excited about it. But then they said, let's introduce you to the musical supervisor. And, any composer knows that when there's a musical supervisor on board, that more than likely there's not going to be a whole lot of score. And so he ended up hearing that there was about 20 songs, and he's just like, I'm out of here. So he bailed on it. And of course, Mark Shaman, who does great with this sort of stuff. He came in and wrote some really nice themes that work really well. And then, of course, they used some great classical music pieces from the score from An Affair to Remember, which really builds the climax of the film quite nicely.
It sure does.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
What do we know about this? This Sven Nykvist.
Yeah, he's been around for a little while, hasn't he? It's just
yeah. So time began, and then there was Sven Nykvist behind a camera. That's pretty much then to roughly the mid-aughts, 2000s.
Yeah, he really was a busy boy. Really was a busy boy. I don't know when he started coming over here, but he really has just been making lots and lots of movies. So he's a great cinematographer. I think that he captures it's nothing too fancy in this film, but it all just feels, there's something kind of slightly romantic about it. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just kind of maybe the color palette also with the production designer, but something just has this nice feel to it all through the film.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask. Do you get a sense for how they, for the treatment that they gave to Meg Ryan's side of the story versus Tom Hanks' side of the story?
Well, this time when I was watching it, I really noticed that Meg Ryan's side of the story had a lot more pinks going on. Like, I swear, every room seemed to be pink somewhere. And so that was an interesting little thing to note. Tom's seemed a lot bluer, and there is no red in the film, so to speak, until
the end.
When they first meet, when she comes to the airport. And he sees her at the airport. There's a whole team of soccer kids all wearing red, kind of cut across. And then she's driving a red car. And that's when red is introduced, when the two of them are first brought together. And then it comes in much more prevalently, obviously, right at the end with the big heart on the side of the building and all of that.
I think I noticed most kind of apparently the mourning tones. Tom Hanks tends to be in a lot of grays and drabs and ironically contrasted to unbelievably awesome Seattle weather.
Yeah.
So the shooting schedule of this film must have been really short.
Right. I think there's only one rainy scene in there, isn't there?
Yeah, right. Mostly pretty nice, but yeah, I mean, you get sort of that picture of the sort of romance lighting on the poster artwork, which is an homage to An Affair to Remember, where you see her in the reds of sunset, and you see him in the blues and grays of kind of the end of day, and I really like that.
No, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really lovely. Okay, so the film did fairly well for a modest, tiny little romance.
It did well for itself. Yes, it did. It garnered 2 Oscar nominations, which is great. It did get nominated for Best Original Screenplay for all of these folks. That lost out to The Piano. In retrospect, I think at the time I really enjoyed The Piano quite a bit. I still do, but I think in retrospect I probably would have picked Sleepless in Seattle. I just think this is a really sharp script. And then the song, A Wink and a Smile, Harry Connick Jr., which is a really great song. That kicks in actually when she starts stalking him.
Yes.
a lovely song to contrast with somebody stalking somebody. That lost out to Streets of Philadelphia from Philadelphia, which is coincidentally another Tom Hanks film. It was a really good year for Tom Hanks. It really was.
Streets of Philadelphia is a great tune, though.
It is,
really.
And yeah, Bruce, and then Philadelphia. I mean, the 2 great songs from that movie. And so this little Wink and a Smile didn't have much of a chance, but yeah, financially, excuse me, it did really well. Are
you having a moment? Are you having an event? It is. I think this was an event.
I'm a little verklempt. Oh. Woo! Yeah. I did have a moment. Excuse me there.
Goodness, that was nice.
I know.
You
wasn't
okay?
it?
Did you swallow your tongue? Don't ever do that. That's not a good thing to get to.
It's just the romance, darling. It's getting to me. All right, so this movie did well for itself. Cost $21 million to make. I didn't find anything about print and advertising, so I don't know how much more they spent on it. But so all I have is just the $21 million. Domestically, the film went on to make not quite $127 million. And then internationally, about $101 million. So all told, it made almost $228 million. Pretty handsome chunk of dough. So when you adjust all that and you look at the profits per finished minute, it made just over $3 million per finished minute.
Well, that's not bad.
No,
where does that put us on where does that put us on the spreadsheet?
It puts us at number 10.
I was just going to ask, did it break the top 10?
It beat out The Bourne Ultimatum, and it's coming in just below 7.
Good company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ugh, what a fantastic film this was.
Yeah,
we didn't even talk about that key line. It's the key. The entire premise of this film is built on a single line from Jonah. I think he needs a new wife.
Yeah.
That's like the sweetest, most incredible thing to have a child say. Well, and better that, it happens. You don't want every child to say that.
No.
Like, I wouldn't want my children to say that.
You don't ever want a child to have to say that.
This is really important given the context.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. But again, and that ties into the whole open of this film, and it's not just about him being broken because of the loss of his wife. It's really about this child who is also in a place where he's almost past the point of pining for his mom and really kind of missing her. Now it's almost like he's afraid of losing his dad too.
Yeah, and that's, I think, in that sequence as he's being put to bed. I'm worried I'm going to forget her. That's an incredibly powerful moment for both of these, these people to come together in this time and say, we have a job to do, and part of that job is not to forget, where we've been, but also to move forward.
Yeah,
that's really powerful. All right.
It is. It really is. No, it's good. It's good stuff. I was going to say something about that. Now I forgot. Oh well. No, it's all good stuff.
One of the things I want to make sure we note about this film that even though it was 20 years ago, there was a fantastic nod to dietary health. I'll take you to Chinatown for dim sum. Does it have wheat in it? So for the gluten-free crowd, this film is certified gluten-free.
That was actually funny because my wife and I were laughing about that line in particular, going, did they not know that dim sum had wheat in it 20 years ago? There are definitely some elements in the film that do date it back
just
to that,
a little bit.
And especially like the computers. I mean, you have to remember this film came out in 93, a year before the World Wide Web broke loose and took over the world. So it's funny looking at these computer systems that these people are using, like the way that she's trying to track him down with her computer. We were laughing at because it's just so dated now. And this was just 1 year before the internet really came to be.
Did it make you want one of those keyboards? The big mechanical key switch keyboards. I was thinking about that thing. That is Andy's kind of keyboard. I'll bet he likes to clicky-clack.
I do have big clickety-clack keyboards.
What we haven't talked about is the whole sort of cultural awareness of privacy in this film and how it is sort of stomped on in this film. And at the time, it was not really a big deal. But here we have a woman using her position of authority to stalk this man based on hiring an investigator and getting information that she was not that would not have otherwise been readily available to her, and that was somehow okay
Right. Haven't some people just been fired recently?
Right. That's sort of a thing today.
Yeah,
we don't really do, and so this would be an interesting movie to remake. Such a big part of it is really about this cultural acceptance of something that we've kind of moved on, like corded phones and clicky-clacky keyboards.
Now she could just Facebook him.
Yeah. Right. That's true.
So see, it's so much easier now.
It is actually. We've made it radically easy. But then the movie's about a different thing.
Yeah.
All right. Let's
Norah Ephron. I was just going to say, Norah Ephron really knew how to tell these stories. I think she did a great job with When Harry Met Sally. She did a great job with this. I really enjoy the stuff that she brought to the table in her films, and it's a sad loss that she passed away. When did she pass away? Just last year.
Was it just last year?
Yeah, last June 2012.
That was sad.
Yeah, she was 71 though. I always thought she was younger. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, let's rank this thing.
All right. Let us rank it.
So you head over to what you want to do is you want to jump on your computing device and you want to head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel. And there you will find all of the films that we have ranked, and you'll be able to look at our top 10, top 20, 30, and so on. And you'll see our golden list, our top 100 films from the next reel, and you'll be able to weigh in and see and do your own ranking and friend us and follow us and like it. I don't know what's the verb for Flickchart. Flick us.
You can friend us.
You could flick us on Flickchart, and what would be great is this would be Flickchart. If you're listening, this is what you need to do from now on. On your friends list, right? You should apply the same ranking logic that you do to movies, because then you should be able to rank your friends against one another just like you do for movies.
Wow.
Single elimination.
That's hard.
All right, go.
All right, Sleepless in Seattle or Thank You for Smoking?
It had to start there.
I know.
As enthusiastic as I am about Sleepless in Seattle, I'm gonna start off there.
At Sleepless in Seattle?
At Sleepless in Seattle, yeah.
I am too. Sleepless in Seattle or The Bank Job?
That's a hard one.
It's totally Sleepless in Seattle.
Well, I'm going to choose Sleepless in Seattle, but I want it to feel painful.
I want it to feel hard, yeah. You got Statham.
Yeah.
But Sleepless. Sleepless in Seattle or The World's End?
You first.
I'll still go Sleepless in Seattle.
Really?
This it has that element of classic in it, and this is a film that 20 years later it still stands strong.
Yeah, I know. You say that every week about something or other.
That's my MO.
That's your refrain. The problem is that as we've talked about The World's End, I think that captures some real kind of context for me right now. Maybe it's because of where I am in life, whatever. I think it's.
And Tom Hanks was just a kid when he made this.
Tom Hanks is a mere youth. I'll go with Sleepless in Seattle for
all those for all the lovers out there.
For the kids, mostly because I'm excited to see what happens next.
Sleepless in Seattle or The Hurt Locker?
Sleepless in Seattle.
Yeah, still go Sleepless. Sleepless in Seattle or Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Lost Ark, absolutely. Sleepless in Seattle or Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid?
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Sleepless in Seattle. Oh, here we go. Sleepless in Seattle or 500 Days of Summer?
Sleepless in Seattle. That's what I was waiting for.
All right. I will agree
totally
with
Sleepless in Seattle.
Look at that. We've now have 2 romantic comedies in our top 10. Sleepless in Seattle at number 6, 500 Days of Summer at number 7.
Wow. We are sensitive, right? New age, loving, aware, vulnerable men.
Yeah.
We are not afraid of ridicule or shame.
That's right. We'll go with our wives to see Magic Mike. We'll cry in dog movies.
Exactly half of us would do that. Statistically, we're still relevant. What are we doing? This one. See, I feel like every week I've said this, but now this one I feel like we may have. Now we're going next week. We have one more.
One more.
Was this that? This was that's talk about dated. That one totally feels dated. What are we doing next week?
Well, I guess we'll see how dated this next one feels. We are doing Say Anything. A lovely romantic comedy by the wonderful Cameron Crowe, Sarmento's favorite.
Are you being sarcastic?
I am being sarcastic.
Okay, because he doesn't like.
Exactly.
Is what you're saying.
Right. That's what that means, yes.
Because of his thing about Almost Famous.
Right.
But Ione Skye.
I know.
That's all.
John Cusack, Ione Skye.
I know. Joe Lies.
This is a great movie. 1989. So that's what we're doing next week.
Don't you even think it?
Did you know that they made Sleepless in Seattle the musical?
I did know that. Started to. This was based off of a book that was written by Jeff Arch, right?
Yeah. I don't know if it was a book, but he wrote the book.
He wrote the book of the thing,
right, based on his story from the show.
And
it was delayed for years. It finally just premiered earlier this year.
Yeah, with David Shore as the producer.
Mm-hmm.
They talked. He talked about that in this script to screen thing, and I put the script to screen thing in the links at thenextreel.com, so you can watch. It's about a half hour. It's a good conversation, and he talks a little bit about the musical, and he said, and I think the lesson, I think the most important lesson is, I'll never do that again. But it's worth watching. It's worth watching.
Oh my goodness.
He talks about a lot of the, going back and trying to make right a lot of the decisions and the choices that you make for the movie that you just can't make for the musical, which is a very different, a very different medium. He says.
Yeah, they had
now wiser.
They had to stop the show, push it back a year, and basically, get new creatives in and start from scratch. Is what it sounds like.
Man, dark days.
A mess. Oh well.
All right. So Say Anything next week, and then we're finished officially for like 10 years of romantic comedies. We're done. We got 2 in the top 10, so that's it. We're done.
We'll have done our film.
Put a fork in it. Back to just horror and action, and some obscure Spanish films.
Yes, that's it. That's all we're gonna do from that on. All right.
All right. Good night, Andrew.
Well, I've got to run. Le Decorateur calls. Oh, that's right. It's not the special sparkle water or whatever it is that you drink. Sparklestein. That should be your new nickname.
I'm not even I was not gonna gratify that with a response, but then you had to say Sparklestein. Soda Stream, you tool.
Sparklestein. I think Sparklestein works much better.
I know you feel funny, but I'm cutting all of this.
Yes, I'm sure you are. Ooh.
Do you want to tell the people?
Let's get started.
Why don't you tell the people where we're from?
I think you should. I think I need to mute for a second.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
So many great conversations over the years about so many great movies.
And some stinkers.
Well, true. But producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
In Season 3, we covered even more great adaptations like The Night of the Hunter and It Happened One Night, both part of our Couples on the Run series.
We talked about No Country for Old Men. The Coen brothers so rarely adapt someone else's work.
We had some fun rom-com adaptations like About a Boy, based on the Nick Hornby novel, and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, adapted from Rachel Cohn and David Levithan's book.
In our terribly and naively named foreign language series, we discussed The Brilliant City of God and The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, which I won't ever be able to watch again, ever.
But could you read the original memoir?
I don't know, maybe?
We had our Richard Dysart series with adaptations like The Day of the Locust and Being There.
Plus, we had that fantastic interview with the man himself.
The one where we had him sit on the floor?
Because this chair was so squeaky. Good times.
We did our first Tom Hanks series with Forrest Gump, adapted from Winston Groom's novel, plus Apollo 13, based on Lost Moon by Jim Lovell.
And we did another year series looking at films from 1981, including Das Boot, Gallipoli, and Thief, all based on books.
Listeners can dive deeper into all of these original stories and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book, play,
movie,
video game. You bet. We have talked about some video game adaptations as well. It doesn't matter the source, just follow the link. Every purchase supports the podcast.
Check out the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and get reading, watching, performing, or playing today.